Hey everybody, it's Chris here from the Most Stop Cafe in Mere, Alberta. I was actually just going to head to bed and I thought, I better do a quick video responding to this claim that somebody made that Alberta can't be independent because of whatever. I said I was going to do it before, I kind of forgot about it. So I figured, well, let's get it out of the way now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, his video is only 4 minutes long, so I'm going to let you listen to the whole video. The guy's got a fantastic voice, so it's perfect for just before going to bed. It might actually help you sleep. I know it's probably going to help me sleep. I'll sleep better knowing that I finally got this rebuttal video done as well. Anyhow, here it is. Have a listen, and then I'm going to talk about it after. And I actually wrote this out because I'm so freaking tired right now. I know I would forget half of it. So this will be one of the first times that I actually read something that I prepared as a rebuttal. Anyway, here it is.
Well, good morning, Alberta separatists. This morning I have come to ruin your day, and I'm going to put your little fantasy of separation to sleep once and for all. And I'm going to do that by demonstrating factually and legally why Alberta would not keep the rights to its natural resources if it tried to leave Canada. Alberta's resource rights only exist because of specific Canadian constitutional arrangements, right? Arrangements that grant those rights to Alberta as a province of Canada. And when you remove the word province, the legal foundation for their rights to resources completely collapse. So let me prove it to you. So in 1905, when Alberta was created under the Alberta Act, it didn't receive ownership of its public lands or its natural resources. And that is not rhetoric. This is written law. This is Canadian history. And Section 21 of the Alberta Act of 1905 explicitly states that all Crown lands, mines, minerals, and royalties in Alberta shall continue to be vested in the Crown and administered by the Government of Canada. So that meant no oil, no gas, no minerals, no land ownership. Unlike other original provinces in 1867, which kept their lands and their resource rights under Section 109 of the British North America Act, Alberta was denied resource ownership as a condition of the federal government creating the province of Alberta. And that matters because it proves that Alberta never had independent resource sovereignty. Okay? Its access to resource wealth was withheld and then later granted to it conditionally. Which brings us to the Natural Resource Transfer Agreement of 1930. So in 1930, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba demanded equality with the original provinces. Okay, and the result was the Natural Resource Transfer Act, right? A constitutional amendment. And here's the key language, and this is the trap that separatists cannot escape. Okay, see, the Natural Resource Transfer Act states that a transfer exists in order that the province may be in the same position as the original provinces of Confederation. See, it does not grant resources to Alberta forever. It doesn't grant resources to the people of Alberta, right? And it doesn't grant resources to a future independent state. Yeah, it grants them to the province inside of Canada, and that language isn't accidental. It is constitutional. See, the Natural Resource Transfer Agreement was ratified by British Parliament and it's entrenched in Canadian constitutional law. It only operates because Alberta is a province. Which brings us to the gotcha. And here's the part that kills the separation fantasy, okay? If Alberta ceases to be a province, the constitutional mechanism that grants resource ownership ceases to operate. See, because you don't take constitutional rights with you when you leave the Constitution. Right? And at that point, the National Resource Transfer Act no longer applies. Resource ownership is no longer guaranteed and everything becomes negotiable. See, this is one of the problems that Alberta would have at the bargaining table if they had a successful referendum. See, because Canada is allowed to say, those rights were granted to you as a province and you are no longer one. So now Alberta would be negotiating oil, gas, land, borders, and debt right from scratch. No inherent ownership to the resources. And the main thing that Alberta separatists seem to keep forgetting, or that they just didn't know, okay, is that you don't get to invoke the Constitution when it benefits you and then abandon it when it doesn't. The very moment that you challenge Alberta's status as a province, you challenge every single constitutional right that comes along with it, including the Natural Resource Transfers Act. Our Constitution is not a la carte. Okay, if Alberta leaves the constitutional framework that grants it resource ownership, it leaves the legal guarantee behind with it.
We will leave that.
Now, get back to work and pay those federal taxes, and then go tell your friends.
I love that last part. Now, I got to say, this guy, he did a really good job. He did his homework. He knows about the Constitution. He knows about the Natural Resources and Land Transfer Act. He even mentioned that was a act of British Parliament, not Canadian Parliament. Same with the 31 Statute of Westminster, by the way. That was British law, not Canadian law. Anyway, so I dug into this a little bit, and here's what I came up with. So please put up with me, because I'm actually going to read this too. So this guy, he's saying that Alberta can't leave because our land and resources are tied to the Constitution, and if we step outside of the Constitution, we somehow lose everything. Before I continue, I want to point something out. This guy's from Toronto. He's not from Alberta. He doesn't seem to like Alberta all that much, or maybe he does. I don't know. That's just the vibe I'm getting. And for some reason, this guy from Toronto is spending a lot of time trying to tell Alberta they can't leave. Kind of like the brother-in-law or whatever who is telling you that you can't leave the abusive marriage because you might not get the car. That's kind of the feeling I'm getting from this. But anyway, let's continue. What he's saying is, in my opinion, it's kind of backwards. Yes, Alberta's jurisdiction over land and natural resources is recognized in the constitutional framework today, including the Natural Resource Transfers Agreement in Section 92A. But that doesn't mean that Ottawa is a landlord. Alberta resources are held by the Crown in Right of Alberta, in trust for Albertans. It's not that the federal government is, some sort of landlord and this is a rental agreement. And more importantly, the assumption being smuggled in there is absurd, and that is that outside the Canadian Constitution, Alberta becomes a legal vacuum where Ottawa gets to repossess the province. That's not how independence works anywhere on earth, now or in the past. When Alberta becomes independent, it doesn't just become unclaimed territory. It becomes a successor state. And if you look at the principles of international law, successor states inherit the territory and public assets within their borders. Land doesn't just revert back to the former central government because a constitutional relationship changes. Otherwise, no country in history would exist. That's important to note. Norway would have lost its land to Sweden. Ireland would have lost its land to Britain. Every post-colonial nation would have been told, sorry, you left, so the empire keeps the soil. That is complete lunacy. And this is the real point. The entire purpose of independence is to be out from under the Canadian Constitution, to no longer have our lives governed by a document that Canadians never wrote, we never signed, and we never consented to no longer have elections effectively decided before votes even cross the Manitoba border, to no longer be taxed without representation. I'm really, really not interested. This is super important. I'm not interested in negotiating Alberta's basic right to exist or begging Ottawa for permission to control what is already Albertans. The question isn't whether Alberta gets to keep the land. The question is whether Albertans will finally claim what every people are entitled to under international law: the right to self-determination, the right to govern themselves, and the right to shape their own laws, their future, and their own destiny. That's what we're doing here. Alberta isn't like, it's not property. We Albertans are not just tenants, and Alberta is not a resource colony any longer that's just pretending to be a province. Alberta is Albertans, and it's time we acted like it. So I hope that explains this in a way you can understand. But I really can't stress enough this point. Yes, Alberta wants to be out from under the Canadian Constitution, because the Canadian Constitution was never designed to serve Albertans. It was never even really designed to serve Canadians. It was designed to maintain colonial control over resource colonies in the Dominion of Canada. And if you bother to read it for, you dig into it deeper than the surface, you'll see that. And if you look at the history of Alberta within Confederation, you'll see that that's exactly the way it's played out. So I'm very happy that this fella from Toronto did this video. It's just one more opportunity where I can talk about these things and explain to you why even what he is saying is a reason why Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. And even though this isn't one of my regular podcasts, I'm going to do the Stumpy outro, because Stumpy really is probably the most beautiful princess cat in the world. And I know how much you all look forward to seeing her at the end of my podcast. So there you go. Thanks for watching.